The stars looked different through the viewport of the Harmony's edge, Commander. Veltar pressed his blue-scaled hand against the cool metal wall and watched the distant suns twinkle in the endless black of space. His ship was on routine patrol. In the neutral zone, a strip of empty space between human territory and the Zephyrian Empire. Nothing ever happened here. That was the point. "Commander, we have something strange on the sensors," called out his navigation officer from across the bridge. The young Altarian's voice carried a note of confusion that made Veltar's ears twitch with interest. Veltar walked over to the sensor station, his long legs carrying him across the bridge in just a few steps. The screen showed a cluster of asteroids floating in the darkness, but there was something else there, something that glowed with a faint energy signature. "What am I looking at?" Veltar asked, leaning down to study the readouts more closely. "Unknown vessel, sir. It appears to be drifting among the asteroids in System K449. The energy readings are ... unusual." Veltar had been patrolling these sectors for 20 years. He knew what unusual meant. Usually it meant trouble, pirates, or worse. But this reading was different. The numbers on the screen made no sense. The energy output was far too high for a ship of that size, and the power signature was unlike anything in the Federation database. "Take us closer," he ordered. "But keep our shields up and weapons ready." The Harmony's edge turned toward the asteroid field, its engines humming quietly through the ship's hull. As they drew nearer, the unknown vessel became visible through the main viewer. Veltar felt his breath catch in his throat. The ship was human. It was unlike any human vessel he had ever seen. The hull was dark gray, almost black, with strange angular sections that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Parts of the ship looked damaged, with scorch marks and twisted metal visible along the sides. But other parts looked impossibly smooth, as if they had been carved from a single piece of some unknown material. "Sir, the energy readings are getting stronger," reported his science officer. "I'm detecting a power core that shouldn't be possible. The output is 10 times higher than anything in our records." Veltar stared at the human ship. It was roughly the size of a Federation cruiser, but it was clearly built for war. Weapon ports lined the hull, and strange antenna-like structures jutted out from various points. The whole thing looked dangerous, even floating dead in space. "Are there life signs?" he asked. "Yes, sir. Faint, but definitely there. I'm reading 12 humans aboard. They appear to be in some kind of suspended animation." Veltar considered his options. The humans were technically allies of the Federation, but this ship was in neutral space. More importantly, it was giving off energy readings that defied known physics. His duty was to investigate. "Hail them," he ordered. The communications officer tried several times, but there was no response. The human ship continued to drift silently among the asteroids. "Sir, I'm detecting movement inside the vessel. The life signs are becoming stronger." On the main viewer, lights began to flicker on inside the human ship. Through the damaged sections of the hull, Veltar could see corridors lighting up as power flowed through the vessel. Whatever had been keeping the humans in suspended animation was wearing off. Deep inside the human ship, Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison opened his eyes. The first thing he noticed was the taste of metal in his mouth, sharp and bitter. The second thing was the pain in his head, like someone had been hitting him with a hammer. The third thing was that he was lying on the floor of what should have been his quarters. Emergency lighting cast red shadows across the small room. Jake pushed himself to his feet, his muscles protesting after what felt like a very long sleep. His uniform was wrinkled and stained, and he couldn't remember how he had gotten here. "Computer, what's our status?" he called out, but there was no response. "The ship's main computer must be offline." Jake made his way to the door, which opened with a grinding sound that suggested the mechanisms were damaged. The corridor beyond was filled with the same red emergency lighting. He could hear voices coming from somewhere ahead. "Jake! Jake, you awake?" The voice belonged to Chief Engineer Lisa Park. Jake followed the sound and found her in the main corridor, helping other crew members to their feet. "Lisa, what happened? Where are we?" Jake asked, still trying to clear his head. I don't know, Lisa replied, her dark hair falling across her face as she checked the pulse of the unconscious crewman. Last thing I remember, we were testing the new drive system, then everything went white. More crew members were waking up throughout the ship. Jake could hear them calling out to each other, their voices echoing through the damaged corridors. Weapons Officer Ryan Cole appeared from a side passage, his face pale but alert. Sir, we've got problems, Ryan reported. The main computer is down, life support is running on backup power, and I can't get a clear sensor reading. But there's something else. What? There's an alien ship out there. Big one. It's just sitting there, watching us. Jake felt his stomach drop. The last thing he remembered was being in human space, testing experimental equipment. Now they were somewhere else entirely, with an unknown alien vessel nearby and his ship barely functioning. Get me a status report on all systems, Jake ordered. And someone wake up the captain. Outside, Commander Veltar watched the human ship with growing fascination. More lights were coming online, and he could see figures moving through the corridors. The energy readings were becoming even more impossible as the ship's systems activated. Sir, their power core is doing something that violates the laws of physics, his science officer reported, his voice filled with disbelief. The energy output is increasing, but there's no corresponding increase in fuel consumption. It's as if they're drawing power from nowhere. That's impossible, Veltar said, but even as he spoke, he knew he was watching something that shouldn't exist. The human ship was coming to life, and with each passing moment, the readings became more incredible. The hull, which had looked damaged and broken, was somehow repairing itself. Metal was flowing like liquid, filling in gaps and smoothing out rough edges. The weapon systems were powering up, creating energy fields that his sensors couldn't identify. Sir, they're hailing us, the communications officer announced. Put them through. The main viewer flickered, and suddenly Veltar was looking at a human face. The man had short brown hair and tired eyes, but there was something in his expression that made Veltar uneasy. It was the look of someone who had seen impossible things and decided to make them possible anyway. This is Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison of the Terran Space Navy vessel Defiant, the human said. Thank you for your assistance. We seem to be having some technical difficulties. Veltar looked at his sensor readings again. The human ship was now generating enough power to supply a small city. Its hull was regenerating. Damaged sections and its weapons could probably destroy his ship with a single shot. The humans called this technical difficulties. Commander Morrison. This is Commander Veltar of the Federation vessel Harmony's Edge. We detected your ship drifting in this system and came to offer assistance. Do you require medical aid? That's very kind of you, Commander. We're still assessing our situation. Give us a few minutes to get our bearings and we'll be happy to talk. The transmission ended, leaving Veltar staring at a blank screen. In 20 years of service, he had never encountered anything like this. The humans were treating their impossible situation as if it were routine. Sir, his science officer said quietly, I don't think we're dealing with normal human technology. Here, this ship shouldn't exist, Veltar nodded slowly. He was beginning to realize that the humans aboard that vessel had somehow created something that defied everything the galaxy knew about physics, engineering, and the basic laws of reality itself, and they didn't seem to think there was anything unusual about it. Captain Amy Rodriguez woke up to the sound of her ship dying. The low hum of the life support systems was wrong, too quiet, like a heart that was barely beating. She pushed herself up from the floor of her ready room, her head spinning from whatever had knocked her unconscious. Bridge, this is the captain, she called out, but her communicator was dead. The small device in her hand was cracked and dark. She tossed it aside and made her way to the bridge, stepping over pieces of debris that had fallen from the ceiling. The bridge was a mess. Half the control panels were dark, sparks flew from damaged circuits, and the main viewer showed only static. But her crew was there, working frantically to bring their ship back online. Report, Amy said as she settled into her command chair, Jake Morrison looked up from the navigation console, his face grim. Captain, we're alive, but just barely. The main computer is offline, sensors are down, and I can't tell you where we are or how we got here. What about the drive system? Amy asked. They had been testing a new experimental engine when everything went wrong. That's the strange part, said Dr. Kevin Chun, the ship's chief science officer. He was a thin man with glasses that were now held together with tape. The drive is still running, but it's doing things that shouldn't be possible. The power output is off the charts. Amy looked around the bridge. Despite the damage, the emergency lighting was steady and bright. The life support systems were working, even though they should have failed hours ago. Her ship was hurt, but it was still fighting. Captain, there's something else, Jake said. We've got company. There's an alien ship out there, and they want to help us. Amy felt her stomach tighten. First rule of space travel. When you're lost and broken, strangers offering help could be either salvation or disaster. Put them on screen, she ordered. The main viewer flickered to life, showing the face of an alien with blue scales and large, intelligent eyes. He looked concerned but not hostile. Captain Rodriguez, I am Commander Veltar of the Federation vessel Harmony's Edge. We detected your ship in distress and came to offer assistance. Do you require evacuation? Amy looked around her bridge again. Her ship was damaged, but it was still her ship. Her crew was tired and confused, but they were still her crew. Whatever had happened to them, they would deal with it together. Think. You for your offer, Commander Veltar, but we're managing for now. We just need some time to assess our situation. Of course, Captain. We'll remain nearby if you need us. The transmission ended, and Amy turned to her crew. All right, people. Let's figure out what we're dealing with. Kevin, I want a full report on our systems. Dr. Chen nodded and began working at his console. What he found made him frown deeper and deeper as the minutes passed. Captain, this doesn't make sense. Our reactor is running at 300% of normal capacity, but it's completely stable. The containment field is holding, even though it should have collapsed hours ago. How is that possible? Amy asked. I don't know. The math says it's impossible, but here we are. Meanwhile, on the Harmony's Edge, Commander Veltar was having his own problems with impossible mathematics. His science officer, a young Altarian named Zixara, was staring at her sensor readings with complete bewilderment. Commander, their ship is doing things that violate the basic laws of physics, she reported. Their power core is generating energy from what appears to be nothing. The readings suggest they have a stable microsingularity contained within their engine room. A microsingularity? Veltar asked. That's impossible. The gravitational forces alone would crush the ship. That's what I thought too, but look. At these readings, Zixara showed him her console. They're not just containing a singularity, they're using it to power their entire ship. And the containment system appears to be made of standard metal alloys that shouldn't be strong enough to hold a paper cup, let alone a black hole. Veltar studied the readings, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. In all his years of service, he had never encountered technology that so completely ignored the rules of reality. Sir, there's more, Zixara continued. Their hull is regenerating. The damage we observed earlier is slowly repairing itself. Metal is flowing like liquid, filling in gaps and strengthening weak points. Show me, Veltar ordered. The main viewer zoomed in on the human ship. As they watched, a large hole in the hull began to close, new metal growing from the edges like living tissue. Within minutes, the breach was completely sealed. How are they doing that? Veltar whispered. I don't know, sir. According to my readings, they're using some kind of programmable matter, but the energy requirements should be enormous. Yet their power consumption hasn't increased at all. Back on the Defiant, Chief Engineer Lisa Park was having her own encounter with impossible technology. She had made her way to the engine room to check on their experimental drive system, expecting to find a burned-out wreck. Instead, she found something that made her question everything she knew about engineering. The drive core was beautiful. It hung in the center of the engine room like a miniature star. contained within a field of dancing energy that shifted from blue to white to colors that didn't have names. The metal around it was flowing and changing, adapting to the massive forces being generated within. "This is impossible," Lisa muttered to herself, running her scanner over the containment field. The readings made no sense. The field was stronger than anything she had ever seen, but it was being generated by equipment that looked like it had been built in her garage. She recognized some of the components: standard fusion conduits, basic magnetic field generators, and what looked like pieces of the ship's old coffee maker. Somehow, her crew had cobbled together a device that could contain forces that should have torn the ship apart. "Lisa, you down there?" Ryan Cole's voice crackled over the intercom. "Yeah, I'm here. Just trying to figure out how we're all still alive. Well, whatever you did, it's working. The weapon systems are coming online, and they're showing power levels that should be impossible." Lisa looked around the engine room again. Every piece of equipment was working beyond its designed limits, but everything was stable. It was as if the ship had decided that the laws of physics were more like suggestions than actual rules. Navigation. Officer Tony Martinez was having similar problems on the bridge. His instruments told him they were in a system he didn't recognize, surrounded by stars that weren't in any of his charts. But that wasn't the strangest part. "Captain, I'm getting readings that suggest we're not entirely in normal space," he reported. "It's like we're existing in multiple dimensions at once." "Explain." Amy said, "I can't. The math breaks down. According to the sensors, we're here, but we're also somewhere else. The navigation computer is trying to plot courses to places that don't exist." Dr. Chun looked up from his console. "That might explain the power readings. If we're partially existing in other dimensions, we might be drawing energy from multiple sources simultaneously." "You're saying we're running on interdimensional power?" Amy asked. "I'm saying I don't know what we're running on, but it's working." On the Harmony's edge, Commander Veltar was receiving reports from his engineering team that were equally impossible. They had sent scanning drones to get a closer look at the human vessel, and what they found defied explanation. "Sir, the human ship appears to be rewriting the laws of physics in its immediate vicinity," reported Chief Engineer Takavar. "Space itself is behaving differently around their vessel. Gravity is stronger, time is moving faster, and electromagnetic fields are acting in ways that shouldn't be possible." "Are they doing this deliberately?" Veltar asked. "I don't think so, sir. I think their technology is so advanced that it's creating these effects as a side result of normal operation. It's like they've learned to make impossible things routine." Veltar stared at the human ship on his viewer. It was slowly repairing itself, drawing power from nowhere, and bending reality around it like it was the most natural thing in the universe. The humans inside were treating all of this as if it were just another day at the office. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "the humans are hailing us again. Put them through." Captain Rodriguez appeared on the screen, looking more alert than before. Behind her, Veltar could see her crew working calmly at their stations, as if having a ship that defied physics was perfectly normal. "Commander Veltar, we appreciate your patience. We've completed our initial assessment and we're ready to talk." "Captain, I must ask, how is your ship doing what it's doing?" "Our sensors are detecting energy readings that should be impossible." Smiled, and there was something in that smile that made Veltar's scales tingle with unease. It was the smile of someone who had looked at the impossible and decided to make it work anyway. "Well, Commander, that's a long story. But the short version is that we don't really believe in impossible. We just believe in problems that haven't been solved yet." Admiral Keshtal received the message while he was eating his morning meal aboard the Zephyrian battleship Crushing Fist. The report came from one of his spy networks hidden deep within Federation space. A human ship had been discovered, and it was doing things that should not be possible. The Admiral was a large creature even by Zephyrian standards. His thick gray hide was covered in battle scars, and his forearms moved with the precision of someone who had spent decades in warfare. When he read the report, his black eyes narrowed with interest. "Bring me everything we know about this human vessel," he ordered his intelligence officer. and prepare the Third Fleet for immediate departure. The Zephyrians had been at war with humanity for 30 years. It was a cold war, fought through small skirmishes and proxy conflicts, but it was still a war. The humans were tough fighters. But they were also limited by the same laws of physics that governed everyone else in the galaxy. If they had somehow broken those laws, the balance of power could shift dramatically. Within hours, 47 Zephyrian warships were moving towards System K449. The fleet was massive. Enough firepower to destroy a small planet, but Admiral Kestrel was not taking any chances. If the humans had developed new technology, he wanted to capture it before the Federation could claim it. Back on the Defiant, Captain Amy Rodriguez was trying to make sense of their situation. Her ship was working, but it was working in ways that made no sense. Her crew was alive and healthy, but they had survived conditions that should have killed them. And now they had alien observers who were clearly amazed by what they were seeing. "Captain, we're getting long-range sensor contacts," reported Tony Martinez from the navigation station. Multiple ships moving fast, heading this way. Amy felt her stomach drop. How many? Too many to count. At least 40 ships, maybe more. They're not broadcasting identification signals. Jake Morrison looked up from his console. "Captain, based on their approach vector and formation, I'd say they're Zephyrian." Amy closed her eyes for a moment. The Zephyrians were bad news under the best of circumstances. Right now, with her ship damaged and her crew confused, they were potentially catastrophic. "Red alert," she ordered. "All hands to battle stations. Jake, get me a channel to the Federation ship." The main viewer flickered to life, showing Commander Veltar's concerned face. Behind him, Amy could see his crew working frantically at their stations. "Commander, we're detecting a large fleet approaching this system. Can you confirm their identity?" Veltar's expression grew grim. "Yes, Captain. They're Zephyrian warships. 47 vessels, led by Admiral Kestrel himself. They'll be here within the hour." Amy considered her options. Her ship was experimental, damaged, and crewed by only 12 people. The approaching fleet could probably destroy her with a single coordinated attack, but running was not an option. The Defiant was too damaged to make it to friendly space, and she would not abandon her crew to an enemy. "Commander Veltar, I suggest you withdraw to a safe distance. This is about to get very unfriendly." "Captain, you can't fight an entire fleet with a single ship. Let us evacuate your crew." Amy looked around her bridge. Her people were tired, confused, and scared, but they were still at their posts. They were still her crew, and this was still her ship. "Thank you for the offer, Commander, but we'll handle this ourselves." The transmission ended, and Amy turned to her crew. "All right, people. We're about to find out what this ship can really do. Ryan, what's our weapons status?" Weapons Officer Ryan Cole had been working frantically to bring the ship's combat systems online. What he found was both encouraging and terrifying. "Captain, the weapons are responding, but the power readings are off the charts. I'm showing energy levels that should burn out the firing circuits, but everything is stable." "Can we fight?" Amy asked. "Ma'am, I think we can do more." "Then fight. I think we can win." In the engine room, Lisa Park was watching their experimental drive system with growing amazement. The device was responding to the ship's increased power demands by generating even more energy. It was as if the system was learning, adapting, becoming more efficient under pressure. "This is impossible," she muttered to herself. But she was beginning to realize that impossible was becoming their new normal. The Zephyrian fleet arrived in system K449 like a storm front. 47 warships dropped out of hyperspace and immediately formed a battle formation around the small group of vessels near the asteroid field. Admiral Kestrel's flagship, the Crushing Fist, took position at the center of the formation. "Scan the human vessel," Kestrel ordered. "I want to know everything about their technology." His science officer, a nervous creature named Vexstar, worked frantically at his console. What he found made him question his own instruments. "Admiral, the readings make no sense. The human ship is generating power levels that should be impossible. Their weapon systems are showing energy signatures that exceed our theoretical maximums." "Impossible. Kestrel growled. The humans are clever, but they're not miracle workers. Sir, I'm also detecting some kind of dimensional distortion around their vessel. It's as if space itself is being warped by their presence. Kestrel studied the tactical display. The human ship was small, clearly damaged, and outnumbered 47-1. But there was something about it that made him uneasy. The energy readings were unlike anything he had ever seen. Open a channel to the human vessel, he ordered, on the Defiance bridge. Amy Rodriguez watched the massive Zephyrian fleet with grim determination. Her ship was completely surrounded with enemy vessels at every possible escape route, but she was not ready to surrender. Captain, we're being hailed by the Zephyrian flagship, reported her communications officer. Put them through. The main viewer showed Admiral Kestrel's scarred face. His forearms were folded across his chest, and his black eyes glittered with hostile intelligence. Human Captain, I am Admiral Kestrel of the Zephyrian Empire. Your vessel will surrender immediately. You are outnumbered and outgunned. Resistance is futile. Amy stood up from her command chair, her hands clasped behind her back. Admiral, this is Captain Amy Rodriguez of the Terran Space Navy. My ship is in neutral space and we have committed no hostile acts. We will not surrender. Then you will die, Kestrel said simply. Your choice. Admiral, before you do something you might regret, let me ask you a question. How many ships have you lost to a single human vessel? Kestrel's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? Well, you're about to find out. All stations, prepare for combat. The transmission ended and Amy turned to her crew. Ryan, target their flagship. Let's see what this ship can really do. Ryan Cole's hands moved over his weapons console with practiced efficiency. The targeting systems came online and he was amazed by what he saw. The ship's weapons were not just functional, they were operating at levels that should have been impossible. Captain, weapons are locked on target. But ma'am, the power levels are incredible. I'm not sure what's going to happen when we fire. Only one way to find out, Amy said. Fire. The Defiant's main guns spoke for the first time in combat. Beams of concentrated energy, brighter than stars, lanced out from the small human vessel and struck the Zephyrian flagship. The result was immediate and devastating. The crushing fist's shields collapsed instantly, overwhelmed by energy that should not have existed. The beams punched through the ship's heavy armor like it was paper, tearing massive holes in the hull. Secondary explosions rippled through the vessel as critical systems overloaded. Admiral Kestrel was thrown from his command chair as his ship bucked and rolled under the incredible assault. Emergency lights flashed, and the sound of tearing metal filled the bridge. Damage report, he shouted over the chaos. Sir, we've lost main power, shields are down, and we have hull breaches on 12 decks. How is this possible? Kestrel pulled himself to his feet, his pride wounded more than his body. A single human ship had just crippled his flagship with one shot. It was not just impossible, it was humiliating. All ships, open fire. Destroy that vessel. The Zephyrian fleet opened fire with everything they had. Hundreds of energy beams and missile salvos streaked toward the small human ship. The space around the Defiant lit up like a miniature sun as the concentrated firepower of an entire fleet struck their target. But something impossible happened. The weapons passed through the human ship as if it were not there. Energy beams that should have vaporized the vessel instead passed harmlessly through the hull. Missiles that should have destroyed the ship exploded uselessly against empty space. What's happening? Kestrel demanded. Sir, the human ship appears to be phasing in and out of our dimension. Our weapons can't hit a target that's not entirely in our reality. Amy Rodriguez watched the enemy fire pass through her ship with calm satisfaction. She did not fully understand what was happening, but she knew her people had somehow made it work. Ryan, return fire. Let's thin out their numbers. The Defiant's guns spoke again, and another Zephyrian ship died in a ball of fire, then another. The human vessel moved through space in ways that defied physics, dodging attacks that should have been impossible to avoid. Captain, reported Tony Martinez from the navigation station, the ship is responding to our commands. but it's also doing things on its own. It's like it knows what we need before we do. The battle was far from over. Admiral Kestrel might have ordered his fleet to withdraw, but reinforcements were already on their way. Long-range sensors detected another wave of Zephyrian ships jumping into the system, twice as many as before. The Admiral was not willing to accept defeat from a single human vessel. Captain Amy Rodriguez studied the tactical display with growing concern. Her ship had performed miracles in the first engagement, but even miracles had limits, or did they? Captain, we're detecting 94 additional Zephyrian vessels entering the system, reported Tony Martinez. They're forming up with the remaining ships from the First Fleet. Amy did the math quickly. Over 100 enemy ships against her single vessel. Even with their impossible technology, the odds were becoming ridiculous. Ma'am, there's something else, Tony continued. These new ships are different. They're larger, more heavily armed. I think they brought their best. Dr. Kevin Chun looked up from his science station, his face pale but determined. Captain, I'm detecting some kind of gravitational distortion around the enemy fleet. They're using gravity weapons. Amy felt her blood run cold. Gravity weapons? Or theoretical technology that could crush a ship like an empty can. If the Zephyrians had developed them, her crew was in serious trouble. Ryan, what's our weapons status? She asked. Weapons Officer Ryan Cole was studying his console with fascination rather than fear. Captain, the ship's weapons systems are adapting. I'm showing new configurations that weren't there an hour ago. It's like the ship is learning how to fight. Learning? Amy asked. Yes, ma'am. The targeting systems are now predicting enemy movements with incredible accuracy. The power systems are channeling energy in ways that shouldn't be possible. And there are weapon types appearing on my console that aren't in any manual. In the medical bay, Dr. Alex Turner was dealing with his own impossible situation. Several crew members had been injured during the first battle, but they were healing at rates that defied medical science. Chief Petty Officer Dan Kelly had taken shrapnel to his arm that should have required surgery, but the wound was already closing on its own. Doc, how is this possible? Don asked, watching his arm heal in real time. I don't know, Alex replied. Honestly, your cellular regeneration is happening about 10 times faster than normal. It's like your body is operating on a different biological clock. Alex ran more scans, and what he found made him question everything he knew about human physiology. The crew's DNA was somehow more stable, their immune systems were supercharged, and their reflexes had improved dramatically. Whatever had happened to them during their dimensional jump was changing them on a fundamental level. On the bridge, pilot Sharon Hayes was discovering her own impossible abilities. The ship's navigation systems were responding to her thoughts, as much as her commands. When she wanted to turn left, the ship began turning before her hands touched the controls. When she anticipated an enemy attack, the ship moved to avoid it before the weapons were even fired. Captain, I'm not sure how to explain this, but the ship is flying itself, Sharon reported. I'm still in control, but it's like the ship knows what I want to do before I do it. Amy nodded. Her entire crew was reporting similar experiences. The ship was not just a vessel anymore, it was becoming an extension of their will. They thought, and it responded, they needed, and it provided. All hands, this is the captain, Amy announced over the ship's intercom. We're about to face impossible odds again. But I want everyone to remember that we've made impossible our specialty. Trust your instincts, trust your training, and trust this ship. We're going to win this. The second wave of Zephyrian ships attacked with coordinated precision. Gravity weapons tore at the fabric of space around the Defiant, creating fields of crushing force that should have flattened the human vessel like a bug. But the ship danced through the gravitational storms as if they were gentle breezes. Admiral Kestrel watched from his damaged flagship as his most powerful weapons failed to touch the human ship. The vessel moved through impossible attack patterns, striking his ships with weapons that seemed to ignore the basic laws of physics. Sir, the human ship is now using some kind of dimensional weaponry, reported his science officer. Their beams are passing through normal space and striking us from angles that don't exist. That's impossible, Kestrel growled. But he was beginning to realize that impossible was not a word that applied to humans. On the Defiant, Ryan Cole was discovering weapon systems that definitely had not existed when they left Earth. His console now showed options for dimensional cannons, gravity disruptors, and something called a reality anchor that he did not even want to think about. Captain, I'm firing weapons that shouldn't exist with energy drawn from sources I can't identify, he reported. But they're working, the battle intensified. The Zephyrian fleet threw everything they had at the single human vessel, but nothing worked. Energy weapons passed harmlessly through the ship's hull. Missiles exploded against shields that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Gravity weapons that should have crushed the vessel instead seemed to make it stronger. In the engine room, Lisa Park watched their experimental drive system evolve in real time. New components were growing from the existing machinery, creating connections and pathways that had not been there before. The device was not just adapting to their needs, it was anticipating them. "Computer, run a diagnostic on the drive system," she ordered, but the computer's response made her stop cold. "Drive system is operating within acceptable parameters for a Class 7 dimensional interface with quantum consciousness integration." Lisa stared at the readout. Class 7 dimensional interface was not a real thing. Quantum consciousness integration was pure science fiction. But apparently her ship did not care about the difference between real and fictional. "Lisa, we need more power to the weapons," came Ryan's voice over the intercom. "You've got it," Lisa replied, and somehow she knew exactly which controls to adjust. Power flowed through the ship's systems like living energy, feeding weapons that created themselves and shields that existed in impossible configurations. The battle reached a turning point when the Defiant did something that made even Commander Veltar question his sanity. The human ship split into 3 identical vessels, each one firing at different targets with full power. "Sir, the human ship has somehow created multiple versions of itself," reported Veltar's science officer. "Each one is fully functional and operating independently." Veltar watched through his ship's sensors as the 3 human vessels tore through the Zephyrian fleet like avenging angels. They moved in perfect coordination, anticipating each other's actions and supporting each other's attacks. It was impossible, but it was happening right in front of him, on the original Defiant. Amy Rodriguez felt a strange sensation, as if she was seeing through multiple sets of eyes. She was still on her bridge, but she was also commanding the other 2 ships. Her crew was doing the same, existing in 3 places at once. "Captain, how are we doing this?" Jake Morrison asked, his voice filled with wonder. "I don't know," Amy replied, "but let's not question it right now." The 3 ships moved as one, striking the enemy fleet from multiple directions. Zephyrian vessels that had seemed invincible moments before were now exploding in rapid succession. The impossible had become routine, and routine was becoming devastating. Dr. Alex Turner made another discovery that changed everything. While treating a crew member who had been exposed to radiation, he found that the man's DNA was not just healing, it was improving. The human genetic code was somehow being optimized by their exposure to the ship's impossible technology. "Done. I need you to look at these readings." Alex called out to Chief Kelly. Dan looked at the medical scanner results and whistled low. "Doc, according to this, I'm stronger, faster, and smarter than I was yesterday." "That's exactly what I'm seeing. Whatever this ship is doing to us, it's making us better." The battle continued for hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. The human ship, or ships, proved that they could adapt to any threat and overcome any obstacle. When the Zephyrians used new weapons, the humans developed new defenses. When the enemy changed tactics, the humans changed the rules of engagement. Admiral Kestrel finally accepted the truth that his military pride had refused to acknowledge. The humans had created something that operated outside the normal universe. They were not just fighting with advanced technology, they were fighting with weapons that redefined what technology could be. "All ships, full retreat," he ordered. "Mark this system as forbidden space." As the surviving Zephyrian vessels fled the system, the 3 human ships merged back into one. The crew of the Defiant found themselves once again on a single vessel. But they were not the same people who had started the battle. "Status report," Amy ordered. "No damage, Captain," reported Jake. "In fact, all our systems are running better than ever." Amy looked around her bridge. Her crew was tired but exhilarated. They had faced impossible odds and won through sheer determination, and a refusal to accept that anything was truly impossible. "Captain," Dr. Chun called out from his station, "I'm detecting something interesting. The ship's technology is not just advanced, it's responsive. It's giving us exactly what we need, when we need it." The silence after the battle was strange. Captain Amy Rodriguez sat in her command chair, watching the empty space where the Zephyrian fleet had been just minutes before. Her crew worked quietly at their stations, but everyone seemed different. Somehow changed. "Captain, we're being hailed by the Federation ship," reported her communications officer. Amy nodded. "Put them through." Commander Veltar appeared on the main viewer, but his expression was unlike anything Amy had seen before. The alien commander looked amazed, confused, and perhaps a little frightened. "Captain Rodriguez, I must ask you directly, what are you?" Amy considered the question. It was a good one. 24 hours ago, she would have said they were a standard Terran Space Navy crew operating an experimental vessel. Now she was not sure what they were. "We're human, Commander." "That hasn't changed." "But your ship, your capabilities, the things we've witnessed, none of this should be possible." Amy stood up and walked closer to the viewer. "Commander, can I ask you something? In all your years of service, how many problems have you encountered that truly had no solution?" Veltar thought for a moment. "Every problem has a solution, Captain. That's basic military doctrine." "Exactly. Humans just happen to be very good at finding solutions that other people think are impossible." Dr. Kevin Chen looked up from his science station. "Captain, I think I understand what happened to us now." "May I explain?" Amy nodded, and Kevin moved to stand beside her. He adjusted his taped glasses and faced the alien commander. "Commander Veltar, 3 days ago we were testing an experimental drive system that was designed to fold space. The test failed, or so we thought. Instead of folding space, we somehow folded reality itself." "I don't understand," Veltar said. Kevin smiled. "Neither did we at first. But humans have a particular talent for making broken things work. When our drive system failed, instead of shutting it down, we kept trying to fix it. We kept pushing it to work even when the math said it was impossible. And," Veltar prompted, "and we broke through into something new. Our ship didn't just travel through space, it traveled into a realm where the normal rules don't apply. A place where determination and will can override physics." Amy nodded. "What Kevin is saying is that we didn't develop impossible technology. We developed the ability to make impossible things possible." In the engine room, Lisa Park was finally understanding what she had been working with. The drive system was not just a machine anymore. It was a bridge between what was real and what could be real. Every time they had needed something impossible, the ship had provided it. "This is incredible," she said to herself, running her hands over the controls. "We built a machine that turned stubbornness into reality." Chief Petty Officer Don Kelly joined her in the engine room. His arm, which had been badly injured in the first battle, was now completely healed and somehow stronger than before. "Lisa, I've been thinking about what happened to us," Don said. "We didn't just survive impossible conditions, we refused to die." "What do you mean?" "I mean, when that shrapnel hit me, I decided it wasn't going to stop me from doing my job. And somehow, my body agreed with me. It healed because I needed it to heal." Lisa stared at him. "You're saying we're healing through willpower?" "I'm saying we're doing everything through willpower. The ship, the weapons, the shields, everything, we needed it to work, so it worked." On the bridge, Tony Martinez was making his own discoveries. "Captain, I've been analyzing our navigation logs. According to the computer, we've been to 17 different dimensions in the past day." "17?" Amy asked. "Yes, ma'am. Every time we needed something that didn't exist in normal space, we apparently went somewhere else to get it. We've Been shopping for reality in places that don't officially exist, pilot Sharon Hayes laughed. That explains why flying felt so strange. I wasn't just piloting through space, I was piloting through possibilities. Commander Veltar listened to the human explanations with growing amazement. Captain, are you telling me that your ship operates on determination rather than technology? Not exactly, Amy replied. Our technology works because we believe it should work. When we encounter a problem that has no solution, we make a solution. But that's impossible, Veltar protested. Commander, humans have been doing impossible things for thousands of years. We flew before we understood aerodynamics. We cured diseases before we understood germs. We built computers before we understood quantum mechanics. We have a long history of making things work first and figuring out why they work later. Dr. Alex Turner joined the conversation from the medical bay. Captain, I've been studying the changes in our crew. We're not just the same humans we were before. We're optimized versions of ourselves. Meaning we're stronger, faster, smarter, and more resilient than baseline humans. But more importantly, we're more determined. Our willpower has been amplified along with everything else. Amy smiled. So we've become more human than human, in a way, yes. Commander Veltar shook his head in disbelief. Captain, your ship destroyed an entire fleet. Your weapons cut through our strongest armor like it was paper. How is that possible with just determination? Ryan Cole answered from the weapons station. Commander, our weapons don't fire energy or projectiles. They fire concentrated stubbornness. When we decided that Zephyrian shields shouldn't exist, they stopped existing. That's not how physics works, Veltar said weakly. Physics is just a set of suggestions, Amy replied. Humans have never been very good at following suggestions. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent signal from long-range sensors. Jake Morrison looked up from his console with concern. Captain, we're detecting a massive fleet approaching. But they're not Zephyrian. Who are they? Amy asked. Federation ships, ma'am. A lot of them. I count over 200 vessels, including several dreadnoughts. Amy felt her stomach tighten. The Federation was supposedly neutral in the conflict between humans and Zephyrians, but a fleet that size suggested they had concerns about what they had witnessed. Commander Veltar, are those your ships? Amy asked. Veltar checked his own sensors and nodded grimly. Yes, Captain. The Federation Council has dispatched the First Fleet to investigate the situation here. Are we in trouble? Amy asked. I don't know. The Federation has never encountered anything like your ship before. They may see you as a threat to galactic stability. Amy looked around her bridge. Her crew had survived impossible odds, defeated overwhelming enemies, and discovered capabilities that redefined what humans could accomplish. They had become living proof that the impossible was just another word for untried. Jake, open a channel to the approaching fleet. She ordered. The main viewer split to show both Commander Veltar and a new face, a stern-looking alien with silver skin and multiple eyes. This is Admiral Jexstar of the Federation First Fleet, unknown vessel. You will submit to boarding and inspection immediately, Amy smiled. Admiral, this is Captain Amy Rodriguez of the Terran Space Navy vessel Defiant. We're operating in neutral space and have committed no hostile acts against Federation vessels. Captain, you have just destroyed a fleet of 94 warships with a single vessel. The Federation Council considers this a matter of galactic security. Admiral, those ships attacked us first. We were defending ourselves with weapons that violate the known laws of physics, Admiral Jexstar replied. Captain, we need to understand your technology for the safety of all species in the galaxy. Amy looked at her crew. They had discovered something incredible, something that could change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. But they had also learned that humans had always possessed this capability. They had just never needed to use it before. Admiral, I'll make you a deal, Amy said. We'll come with you and explain everything we can. But in return, the Federation recognizes that humans don't do impossible things because we have advanced technology. We do impossible things because we're too stubborn to accept that they're impossible. Admiral Jextar considered this. You're saying that human determination is a form of technology? I'm saying that human determination is something that transcends technology. We don't break the laws of physics, Admiral. We negotiate with them. 6 months later, the Defiant docked at Federation headquarters. The ship had been studied by the greatest scientific minds in the galaxy, but none of them could explain how it worked. The humans were happy to share their discoveries, but they could only explain what they had done, not how they had done it. Dr. Kevin Chun gave presentations to alien scientists who listened with amazement as he described humanity's approach to problem solving. We don't solve problems by understanding them first, he explained. We solve them by refusing to accept that they can't be solved. The ship itself became a symbol of human ingenuity throughout the galaxy. Other species would come to study it, hoping to learn the secrets of its impossible technology. But they always left disappointed because the secret was not in the technology. The secret was in the people who refused to believe that impossible was anything more than a word. Captain Amy Rodriguez stood on the observation deck of the space station, looking out at her ship. The Defiant floated in its docking bay, looking ordinary and unremarkable, but she knew better. The ship was a monument to human stubbornness, a testament to the power of refusing to give up.